Welcome back to Behind the Build with Easton Grey Studio.
In our last episode, we gave you a brief tour of our project and our apartment and a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing, but we thought we'd rewind it a little bit and give you more of a story about who Dave and I are, where we came from, what brought us together, and dive further into why we're doing what we're doing. So, rewind. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Good morning. Yeah, so we moved into this office building about a decade ago when Dave acquired the lease from the business that we purchased. And we were on the second floor in a really dark space. We're on the 21st floor now, which is amazing. The light up here is way better. I can see the Hudson River, the New York Times building. It just feels very New York-y. This office space we started to outgrow shortly after COVID, and we ended up acquiring another suite down the hall, which is where Dave goes to work every day. So we split at the elevator, which is really nice. We used to sit in this office space at desks that face one another. They're sit-stand desks, which is nice, but the proximity was challenging.
Here we are now in the backbone of the construction arm, otherwise known as 2102. This is where construction functions, where our project managers sit. We get together, we talk about projects, we talk about how we're going to do them, how we're going to build them. We can look at statuses, we can look at financials, we can look at everything that's going on with the project and the schedules.
So it was really nice to be able to get a little extra space so the construction team sits back there. They have just a different energy than the design studio does. So, you know, we're quiet here, we're a little bit more heads down, and
it's a very different atmosphere, but at the same time, it's designed well by our design team, and it's a nice place for us to work each day.
I don't know.
We did find
it's complicated.
After sharing an office together, sitting face to face.
That was too much. Whew. Sitting across from you in an office all day, every day.
It's great.
You talk all the time.
Yes.
All of the time.
But we did that. And so we got a COVID deal on office space for my team. And so I got to move down the hall.
So he gets to go to a separate door and I get my own space.
It's like we go to separate jobs and separate offices.
Yeah.
So much better now. How did I get into this? Why do I do construction? I think is an interesting question. My father died when he was 40 years old. I was 14 and I have two younger brothers. And we were living in a small house and the toilet broke. And my mother's like, what do I do? And we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And I said, well, take me to the library. I'm gonna figure out how the toilet works. So she took me to the library. I found a book on how toilets work. Went to a hardware store and I went home and I fixed the toilet. We didn't need those repair guys. And eventually I got a taste of real estate. We rented out the house that I grew up in. And at 17 years old, I said, let me be the landlord. So I became the landlord. I did all the painting, I did all the fixing, I did all the repair, I did all the maintenance, I did everything. And it was odd for the tenants because I was this 17-year-old high school kid and I was their landlord, but that spurred my interest in real estate. I got out of college and went to school for electrical engineering initially. After 4 semesters of calculus, I decided to switch to finance. I went to work for what became the largest financial company in the world. And on the side, I started buying apartment buildings. I would recruit my brothers, I would recruit my friends, I would recruit my cousins and my neighbors. And we would rebuild apartment buildings and tear them apart. So I learned how to do all of this work, and I learned how good ways and bad ways to do it.
I grew up in a small town on the eastern shore of Maryland, a little town called, drumroll, Easton, which also happens to be our oldest daughter's middle name and the part of the name of our studio. We moved when I was 10 to follow my ice skating career. So I was a competitive figure skater for 12 years, and we moved to Delaware to be close to the University of Delaware as part of my training demanded. Skating defined who I am in so many ways. It defined my work ethic, going to school, then going to train, doing everything outside of just skating, like weight training, ballet, jazz, all of the things that went into making me the best athlete I could be, I think really helped shape a lot about who I am. I quit when I was 16 and, explored other things. Really the time management skills, the wanting to be the best at whatever I'm doing translates into who I am. I went to college in Virginia. I always wanted to study architecture, and my grades were not fantastic in high school. So Virginia Tech had a pretty competitive architecture program. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I took some courses in interior design and loved it. So I decided that I didn't want to spend time trying to catch up with the architecture program. Went through interior design, graduated from Virginia Tech, go Hokies. And through my career, I started in interior design positions, but I always worked for architects. And I ended up learning that I could become a licensed architect in New York City, in New York State, through a different path than just going back to school. So I became licensed through a series of 7 exams, a full year of studying. I just remember Dave coming with me to the office to work on the weekends while he would, it's the only time we spent time together because I was so busy studying and working and taking all these exams, but it was worth it. I say we met through mutual friends. We met in a bar through mutual friends.
One of my friends who was an engineer introduced me to this group of girls, and one was Megan, who happened to work for an interior design firm with his sister.
And that was 20 years ago. We just had our 20-year first date anniversary. I was this starry-eyed 24-year-old girl who said to him, I've always wanted to live here. Like, this is such a cool place. The city just feels so full of hope and possibility. And
I said, so why don't you? She moved, and I would get on the train every weekend and come up to visit her.
Spent a lot of money on Amtrak. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm not coming back. So what are you doing? And he moved up in the summer of that year. And
after a little while, we moved in together, then we got married. And then I got an itch to do something new, and I really enjoyed construction and building things. And I was trying to find my way around New York City. And I said to her, I'm gonna start a construction company. And I wanna do construction differently than what I've been seeing in New York. And so instead I went out and I looked for a company that was for sale. And that was the birth of Crafted, which is now reborn into Easton Grey. How did we join together and start working together?
These right here, I muscled my way right in.
Yes, you did.
We talked about it a little bit, and I don't think he was wild about the idea, but he wouldn't tell me no.
So I had no idea where this was going to go, what was going to happen. You were working away at a big architecture firm after we had our first kid, working 70 hours a week, and you just asked me one day in October, I can't do it anymore. I actually want to see our child and raise our little Callie. And I called my brother and I'm like, Megan wants to come work with me. And he said, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. And everybody I talked to said, don't work with your spouse. You've got to be crazy. And I told her, don't do it. You have a great job. You have a great career. You're killing it. You should figure out a way to stick with that. So my response was, no.
You didn't tell me no.
I didn't tell you no?
No. You didn't say no.
What did I say?
I didn't really say yes, because he's a people pleaser and he doesn't tell me no, so I'm not going to complain about it all the time.
So we discussed, and you went back to your boss, and said, we need to work on something so that I can raise my child and still work and have my architecture career.
I just saw that he could use some help, and there were a lot of things I thought that could be done differently with how his business was functioning and operating. I think we work well together because we are so different and we have different work styles, different communication styles, and what I don't do well, he can jump in and do great. And what he maybe doesn't excel at, I can jump in and fill that gap. And then more importantly, the team that we have around us, I think we're able to provide a great experience and a great product and a great process for our clients. More so than if Dave were on his own or if I were on my own. And that whole work-life balance thing doesn't really exist anyway, so still going, and now we decided to do our own renovation.
So why did we decide to make our apartment into our show house? And I think the big thing is most of our clients are very private people. They're very busy people, and they don't want people coming into their house. I don't want to have to say, oh, we need somebody to come through as a reference and can they see our work? They're not running museums. So we need to build something that we're proud of that we can take people through later. And
I think it also helps that we can authentically share the story of that space and not just send them on a tour of an apartment. We're able to share how we got through these decisions, how we put our thought process and our, wish list, want list in the design process, and what that actually materializes to in this real life space that we can actually walk and talk and touch and feel with our clients. It's very different than someone else's project, and it's very different than our office space, which obviously has limited constraints. And it gives us the ability to share with clients the experience that we've been through, right?
Totally.
We've been pushed a bit with what we want and what we might respond to by Patrick, who has been instrumental in helping us respond to things that we hadn't thought about and we hadn't really looked at. Taking some of those cues from Patrick has been really helpful for us who, like I said, I'm not an innate, fantastic interior designer. And so I think that's helped round our team out and helped bring our project to be the best that it can be.
My name is Patrick Fox and I'm head of design here at Easton Grey Studio. I've been with the company since 2018. I came here via Canada, but originally from Ireland. I studied interior architecture in ATU Sligo, which was kind of like a dream come true. I've always wanted to be a designer and found this incredible course in my hometown, so I didn't have to go far. But I learned about designing from existing buildings and how you can use existing spaces and reimagine them. And that's basically what I do at my role here at Easton Grey Studio. So after working for a couple of years in Dublin, I worked for a design firm there. I decided to pack it all up and move to Canada. What was meant to be 6 months there has now turned into 3 years, and then has now turned into nearly 10 years away from home. But in Canada, I worked in more like furniture industry and more like in-house interior design. And my now husband got a job in New York, and I decided to follow him here because it's New York, and if you have a chance to come here, you try at least. And so I applied to a couple of jobs. I saw this posting for a role in the city, and it was crafted interiors. I admit this, and I've admitted this to Megan and David, that I was not enthusiastic about their website. There was a couple of projects on there that I really loved, but I wasn't excited. So I said to myself, well, maybe I'll just give it a chance. So I had a call with David. I think I said all of 5 words for the hour phone call, which really did set the tone for how things are going to shape up in the job. The second interview was with Megan, who I instantly kind of connected with.
Patrick and I work really well together. We both respect one another. I admire his creativity, his thought process.
I think we were aligned from day one, and then that's kind of continued. So I came for an in-person interview. I walked into this office space and was instantly blown away. And I was like, yep, this is it. Their website was not reflecting who they were as people and as a company. And I saw the opportunity to do this role, do it well, but also kind of collaborate with them and see what we could do as a company.
America as a society has, because of the people I mentioned earlier, my grandparents and their parents who came here and did manual labor, we've minimized that and said, oh no, in order to be successful, you have to do finance, or you have to sit behind a desk. And what I've found is the value in working with your hands, and I don't work with my hands, I work with my hands with a pen and a computer, but the people that work with us, they work with their hands, and there's a lot of value that they create, and it's difficult work. And if I can add value by finding ways to do it well, because if we do it poorly and then all we do is complain about what we have, and instead it should be something that adds value to our families and the way we live and the way we operate in business. I could talk about that all day.
Now, I wear the more technical hat. You know, my sweet spot is getting through the review and approvals process, which is not for the faint of heart and not for everyone. I thrive in it. I enjoy the process of the back and forth with the building and the board for a co-op or condo, and dealing with the New York City Department of Buildings and Landmarks Preservation Commission. I'm not as creative as I thought I would be at the beginning of my career, if that makes sense. So my interior design void is filled by Patrick Fox, who joined us about 7.5 years ago.
I fill that kind of space with the design, from concepts through turnkey of spaces, from everything from finishes, carpentry, cabinetry, and then all the way down to furniture, lighting, and the full kind of scale. My everyday role is focused really on the client. It's mostly client communication, client interactions, presentations, design concepts. You know, of course, like the design side of most of our projects is a very small part of the whole scheme. It's mostly about the documentation, budgeting, scheduling, the details to bring everything to life. But that is, you know, not possible without the team that we have kind of behind the scenes as well on the design side and from the coordination. So of course we have started and are in the middle of Megan and David's renovation. To say it was a daunting task to design for your two bosses, it was a lot of pressure, but a very exciting one. I think watching them go throughout the years of see what they could do for other clients and other projects around the city, that want from them of like, oh, we want this for us. And I've always kind of tagged it as this is their turn. This is their turn to make their own Easton Grey project, to make it theirs. I'm excited for it because I get to be part of that story. I get to be part of creating a home for them. Very excited selfishly for all of the incredible design details that I've always wanted to do, and all the concepts that we've maybe didn't make it in every project, but this one we get to be unfiltered and be able to push, especially on cabinetry. Anyone that knows me, I'm a total nerd when it comes to cabinetry, and there is not one single room in Megan and David's apartment that doesn't have cabinetry. And of course it is all custom, all special request.
So the purpose of this YouTube channel and this series is really to give an unfiltered view of what it's like to go through this process.
One of the things that we found is most of the media related to architecture, design, and building is related to just show you the pretty things. And then from the build perspective is, how do we do this and how do we do this better? But the people that we want to relate to want to understand, what's it going to feel like if I went through this process? I want people to feel like they're going through this journey with us. How we build, how we design, and what this process looks like in this crazy city called New York.
New York gave us our careers, a family, and a place to call home. Now we're taking everything we've learned and putting it into a project that's deeply personal to us.
Next time, we begin designing the future of this apartment. We'll tackle the challenges, explore the possibilities, and start turning our vision into a plan.